Student Community Center in the world. We are lucky that this is in Canada and specifically this is Toronto and Toronto. And good morning to the other audience. And we appreciate this to give the time for giving us some a little bit more explanation about what the government is doing for the community on the education sector, specifically with this difficult situation which we understand. We really continue, and that was the purpose. We started to inform our community more in detail about what government is doing for education, and I know that it is a difficult job. I personally appreciate what the government has done. When we started to ask a question from one community to raise a concern, out of 100 of the questions, we summarized and we agreed to 7 questions which will be raised by our chair, and the author is going to address this question. Before we start, of course, when we ask the question, we have to go with the translation, if you don't mind, with the explanation in English and the audio will translate it also. But it's important that if you want to give some opening speech, we appreciate to have your input, and then we will start to ask the question.
Thank you very
much for giving time for us. And we are hopeful that we will do for other ministries so that the community become well aware what community are doing and the government is doing for the community. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Good morning, everyone. It was quite fascinating to join my colleagues, Michael Parsa, Logan Kalpathy, to do a quick tour to see the beauty of this community center, why it stands alone in the world as a center that really emanates your culture, diversity, and the accomplishments of Persian Canadians, both in Ontario and around the world. So we're just grateful for the opportunity to join all of you, and very proud to promote our plan to keep students safe, to protect our staff, and to really make sure our schools remain open in the province of Ontario. I look forward to taking questions, and in the interest of time, maybe we'll get right into them, but I just want to reaffirm the government has built a protocol listening to the Chief Medical Officer of Health, listening to the best medical and pediatric minds in this country, that has ensured that kids, 1.5 million students every day in class with the lowest rate of transmission, low level of outbreak, and ultimately a growing consensus that schools are safe in this province. And I'll speak more about our protocol, our investment, and the broader commitments through the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lecce, for coming to Parya today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days to join us. So through the hundreds of questions we received, we sifted through them and we picked 7 questions to ask you today, if you don't mind. I'll be asking the question in English first, and then I'll be translating the question into Farsi just so people on Zoom may understand if they're not fluent in English. Sure. And then you'll get a chance to answer them. So the very first question is a multi-point question. I'll just go through it in English and then Farsi, and then you'll have a few moments to answer it as well. If you're ready, I'd like to start.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So the very first question is, what safety measures have been put into place for students to ensure their health and safety? The first point for this is, are the classrooms being ventilated? The second point of it is, has the government committed funding to enable smaller classroom sizes for students to socially distance? Mm-hmm. And the third point is, masks are currently being provided to staff. Is there any plans to also provide them to students as well? And the last point of this question is, for students with underlying health issues, is there any precautions being taken by school to ensure their safety? I'll be translating it into Farsi, so bear with me a moment. چه قانون‌هایی برای سلامتی شاگردان درست شده؟ کلاسروم ها سیستم تصفیه هوا دارن؟ گاورمنت کانادا کمک مالی که سایز کلاس ها رو کمتر کنن که شاگردان فضای کافی داشته باشن که بتونن سوشیالی دیستنس کنن دارن؟ فیس ماسک الان داره برای کارمند مدرسه ها داده میشه. پلانی هستش که فیس ماسک به شاگردان هم پروواید بشه؟ و سوال آخری برای استودنت هایی که مشکل سلامتی دارن که ایمیون سیستمشون ضعیفتر هست، مدرسه ها برنامه‌ای دارن که اینجور استودنت ها رو سیف نگه دارن؟ And if you may,
Sure.
please.
Should I unmute or I'm good?
You should unmute, please. Sorry.
We're good? Okay. You'll let us know if you can't hear us. But so to answer that multi-point question, first off, our plan, we've unveiled $1.3 billion in investments in Ontario. We lead Canada with the largest investment in the country of any province. We have a protocol that has been fully endorsed and fully built by the Chief Medical Officer of Health of this province, Dr. David Williams, and leading pediatric doctors. Our plan includes monies for ventilation to improve airflow in all schools in Ontario. Over 95% of schools have done a full audit, improved their air filtration systems, supported by an additional $50 million the province unveiled. We have purchased 21,000 HEPA filters. These are the highest standard of air filtration for schools. 7,000 to 8,000 additional filtration systems built and purchased just for the Toronto District School Board alone, just to underscore how important this is for us. We have put in place supporting more classroom teachers, 2,700 more teachers have been hired under the Premier Ford's leadership, another 1,200 custodians, hundreds of ECEs, early childhood educators, mental health workers. In every single realm in this province, we lead in hiring. And as a consequence of that hiring, we have seen the lowest rate of classroom sizes in Canada. Classroom averages are down. And if you compare our plan, when we increase screening, increase the cohorting, we increase the amount of students, staying within schools, compared to the online option, the fact that in most provinces, in fact all provinces, they don't even have an option online and in class. It is just this province alone that is offering students an online and an in-class experience. So when you look at the plan, it's not just about the health protocol, it's about the choice we're providing parents as well, should they want to keep their kids home, and we respect that. With respect to masking, we allocated $90 million to provide masks for free to staff, but also to all students, starting in September. So the first day of school, we provided a cloth mask to any student that required one. We've allocated more than sufficient PPE, more than sufficient supply of masks for every child, for every staffer. That will never be compromised. We've got a solid supply chain, and they're in schools right across Ontario. So that's helping, especially for lower income kids that may need that support. With respect to kids with underlying health conditions, the fact is in this province, we're giving parents a choice to keep their kids at home, to learn online. That choice is going to really protect the safety for children that have underlying health conditions, and for some of our families where we live with intergenerational experiences, where we have grandparents at home. Some parents want to keep their kids home for that reason. We respect your choice, and we've made sure that every school board in Ontario provides that option, a quality learning experience online and an in-class experience. And if you chose online learning, I will just note that we created the online learning program in the middle of the pandemic. 500,000 kids are in it. It represents the highest quality in Canada. 75% of the day is live, sort of like a Zoom-style classroom, trying to really emulate the classroom experience. So we've done all of this to make sure that kids are safe, that learning continues, it's not compromised, and I'm quite proud of the fact that Ontario continues to lead, not just in the protocol we unveiled, but as well in the safety of our schools. As you will know, 99.9% of students in this province are COVID-free, 99.86% of staff are COVID-free. We have almost 5,000 schools, of which 3 have an outbreak, a closure as a consequence of an outbreak. So we're doing something right, and we're going to continue to follow the advice of public health to keep all kids safe.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that answer. I'll be moving on to the second question now. The TDSB has reported more than $1 billion in expenditure for 2020-2021 school year. What were these expenses?
Yeah, I mean, each school board is responsible, for their management. These school boards are sort of self-autonomous. So, it's a fair question. As a taxpayer, I want to know where your money's gone, and it's a good question for our elected trustees in Toronto. I can tell you what we have done to support the school board is provided them with funding to hire over 400 new teachers in that school board alone, 412 new educators just for Toronto District School Board. Another roughly 100 custodians have been hired net new because of investment by the province supporting the school board. And they've also been able to hire more virtual principals to run these virtual schools for the kids in line on class. So we've provided them with a significant infusion of funding. Over $100 million has been unlocked during COVID for that school board. And of course, we ensure accountability for your tax dollars, making sure it reaches our kids and the front line.
Thank you very much for that. I will be moving on to the third question now. For those of us who may have not understood that fully, I'll be just replaying that answer in Farsi a little bit. اکثر این اکسپندیچرها برای اضافه کردن استاف ها بوده، بیشتر معلم بیارن، کستودیان بیارن که بتونن مدرسه ها رو تمیز کنن و فاندینگ بوده برای ورچوال سکول ها که بتونن استاف هم برای اونا استابلیش بکنن، پرینسپل آنلاین تیچرز. The third question. Where can students who have opted for virtual school obtain support for any issues or concerns? And I'll just be reading this in Farsi as well. شاگردانی که کلاس‌های آنلاین انتخاب کردن برای امسال چجوری دسترسی به کمک از اسکول استاف دارن برای حل کردن مشکلاتشون؟
So the province announced an investment of roughly $70 million to hire principals for the virtual schools, because I wanted to make sure that for parents out there that chose to send their kids online, that you still had a principal dedicated to your kids. I didn't want a scenario where one principal is responsible for hundreds of kids in a school and hundreds of kids online. I wanted a dedicated person, professional, that could be there to hear your concerns and ultimately act upon them. And that's why we enabled the hiring of more of these school board leaders to be a voice for parents, to create accountability for the teacher. We've also ensured that we have strengthened the Ontario College of Teachers, which is the oversight. That's the body that oversees the teachers. They're the regulator for teachers, giving them more accountability so that when parents have concerns, their voices are not just heard and shuffled away, but there's actually some real teeth, some real accountability to the college, especially when it comes to issues of safety, for example. So we've taken action. We're going to continue to do that. And I will just say, for the first time in Ontario history, I mandated that every teacher has to have conducted professional development to teach online before school started this September. And thank goodness we did that, because they are light years ahead of where they were in the spring when we had to close schools in March. They have a better sense of how to use the technology, how to make it interactive, and they're more comfortable with something, to be fair to them, they've never had to do before in the context of online learning. So we're all learning, I think, but it's good to see that professional development of our staff. It's great to see those principals providing leadership for the online schools. And I really am proud that in Ontario, we're the only province to offer it. Amongst every jurisdiction on the continent, we're the only one to offer an online and an in-person learning experience, and we should be proud of that development, recognizing that we have to continue to improve it every step of the way.
Thank you very much. I'll just be translating that as well. توی آنتاریو Minister of Education $70 میلیون allocate کردن باجت که بتونن آنلاین سکول رو قوی تر بکنن، ترینینگ برای معلم‌ها که چجوری بتونن آنلاین درس بدن، چجوری با استودنتاشون کانکت کنن، به خاطر اینکه این یه سیچویشن جدیده برای هممون. مدرسه ها قبلا آنلاین نبودن، به خاطر همین بیشتر فاندینگ گذاشتن که آدمایی که تو مدرسه هستن، پرینسپلا، معلم‌ها ترینینگ بیشتر داشته باشن که بتونن این کارو زودتر یاد بگیرن و این تمام این تشکیلات و تازگی همش درست شده. So there's a learning curve to it. I'll be moving on to question number 4, if I may. For students who are new to a school, have schools considered any mechanisms to help them connect with their peers? are there any additional resources available to them? And I'll just be repeating this in Farsi as well. برای شاگردانی که سال اولشون در یه مدرسه جدید هست، مدرسه‌ها راهی درست کردن که این شاگردان با همکلاسیاشون در رابطه باشن.
So we, for the online learning experience, we have asked our school boards to make it as similar to the in-class experience, which means that for many classes, they start the day with the national anthem. The parents get a full timetable. They know exactly which courses and subjects students will be learning that day with which teacher. And I think that's really important to create that that standard where the kids feel like they're part of a real community in the classroom. And that's why we've done that. We've also set the highest standard. In this province, if your child is learning online, I set a mandatory minimum of 75% of the day, the day of learning must be live learning, sort of like what we're doing right now, a Zoom-style classroom. Minimum 75% of the instructional day, of the day of learning, is online live. There's no province like that. I mean, in Ontario, we do more learning in one day than Manitoba does in a week, just to contextualize the standards we've set and the expectations we've set for our teachers and for our school boards. And I think our kids need that high standard, especially during the pandemic with great levels of pressure. And that's why we're making sure that the quality of learning continues to be protected.
Thank you very much. I'll just be translating that to Farsi again. آنتاریو تنها استانی هستش توی کانادا الان که هم مدرسه های فیزیکال داره که بچه ها میتونن برن در کلاس و مدرسه ورچوال داره. به خاطر همین جوری که اینا رو تهیه کردن، آنلاین اسکول خیلی سیمیلر هستن توی استراکچرشون به مدرسه های عادی. هنوز همون تایم تیبل رو دارن، همون کلاس سایزا رو دارن و پرنتس همون اسکیجول عادی رو دارن، بچه‌هاشون رو میدونن چه کلاسایی دارن و توی زوم میتینگ موقعی که بچه‌ها میرن توی زوم ورچوال کلاس رومشون و همدیگه دسترسی دارن، میتونن با همدیگه حرف بزنن، شیر نوت بکنن. و همین هنوز خیلی سیمیلر هست. یک کلاس عادی رو بیسیکلی بردن آنلاین، همینجوری که ما امروز به جای اینکه میتینگمون این پرسن باشه روی زوم هست. Thank you. I'll be moving on to question number 5. Tracking and tracing is a critical component for controlling this pandemic. What measures are schools taking to make this possible? Are confirmed cases of COVID-19 in schools being tracked? And if yes, where can this information be obtained by the public? And I'll just be translating that into Farsi as well. ترک کردن این ویروس یکی از مهمترین کارهایی هستش برای کنترل کردن پندمیک. مدرسه ها چه سیستمی درست کردن که بتونن این کار رو انجام بدن و کیس هایی که کنفرم شدن الان دارن ترک میشن و اگه دارن ترک میشن این اطلاعات قابل دسترسی برای پابلیک هست؟
So we made a decision at the beginning of school to publicize on a daily basis all outbreaks and COVID cases and closures of schools across the province every day for parents to see. The Premier has said what he sees, what we see, you will see. We agree. We think transparency is critical. The data, I think, tells a story. The fact that 99.99% of students remain COVID-free, the fact that in Quebec, they have 1 million students learning. They have almost 9,000 COVID cases cumulatively, whereas in Ontario, we have over 1.5 million kids in school, and yet we have roughly 3,500 cases. It shows you that we are doing something right. Also, all children are screened before they enter schools, and I'm proud under Premier Ford's leadership that we have more than doubled the amount of public health nurses that are working in our schools in every region of this province, including here in York Region, in Toronto, in Peel, in Dufferin, in Durham, right across the province. We have more than 615 new public health nurses in schools supporting testing, screening, and obviously, when required, providing support, symptom relief to the kids themselves. All of this is making a big difference, and again, we're the only province to provide that level of transparency.
Thank you very much. I'll just be summarizing that into Farsi as well. بله کیسایی که تو مدرسه هستن دارن ترک میشن. پریمیر فورد اینو از اولش گفته بودن که اینفورمیشنی که دسترسی من دارم بهش پابلیک هم این دسترسی رو بهش دارن. توی نیوز هر روز میتونین ببینین اگه یه کیس جدید توی مدرسه باشه اسم مدرسه رو اعلام میکنن و میگن. و یک چیزی که در مورد آنتاریو الان خیلی خوب هست کامپیرد به استانهای دیگه مثل کوبک، ما کیسامون خیلی کمتر هستش توی مدرسه‌مون اسپشیالی. الان 99.7% استودنت هایی که توی مدرسه تو آنتاریو هستن هیچ کیس کرونایی ندارن، یعنی سکسس ریتش خیلی بالاست. فاندینگ بیشتر هم آوردن، امسال 650 تا نرس جدید تو مدرسه ها آوردن که بتونن کمک کنن، ترک کنن و پریونت بکنن این ویروس رو توی مدرسه ها. Question number 6, Minister Lecce. What is defined as an outbreak, and at which point should a school consider closure?
So an outbreak is defined within a 14-day period of 2 or more cases with an epidemiological link. For example, if 2 staff members in the same staff room had COVID and they determined the transmission happened between those 2, that's when an outbreak is, quote, triggered, when there's 2 or more. That's a decision point made exclusively by public health or the public health unit. In York Region, it'd be the York Region Public Health. In Toronto, it'd be Dr. Davila and the Toronto Public Health. They make the decisions based on the science and evidence, not politicians, as you would expect. They publicize all decisions related to definitions of COVID cases or outbreaks on a daily basis so that parents just know what's happening in their community. But I should note, of the roughly 5,000 schools in the province, 3 are closed, which statistically is very low. And I think, again, makes clear that the protocol we have unveiled in the province, endorsed by the Chief Medical Officer of Health, is working.
Thank you very much. That question, I'm just going to translate it back into Farsi and then translate the answer as well. اپیدمی از نظر شما چی هست و کی مدرسه‌هایی که اپیدمی داشتن باید در فکر بستن باشن؟ اولین چیز که مینیستر لچه گفتن این چویس مدرسه نیستش که خودشون ببندن، این چویس پابلیک هلث اون سکشن واسه یورک ریجن یورک پابلیک هلث هستش، واسه تورنتو تورانتو پابلیک هلث هست. اگه توی 14 روز 2 تا کیس کانفرم توی مدرسه باشن که به هم دیگه لینکد باشن، مثلا 2 تا معلم که توی بریک روم بودن هر 2 تاشون کیس کرونا داشته باشن، اون موقع اینو آیدنتیفای میکنن از اپیدمی و اون موقع هستش که پابلیک هلث اون ریجن آنتاریو میاد و دیساید میکنه که باید ببندن یا باید نگه دارن مدرسه رو باز. و از 5,000 تا مدرسه‌ای که الان ما تو آنتاریو داریم 3 تاشون بیشتر بسته نیستن که این واقعا خیلی کار فوق‌العاده‌ای هستش.
Pardon me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And moving on to the very last question, question number 7. Mental health is an important issue, especially during this pandemic. Will schools provide mental health services for students via social workers, counselors? And how can students and parents access these services? I'll just be translating this into Farsi before we get your answer as well. مشکلات فکری، روحی و عاطفی خیلی مهم هستن. مخصوصا توی پندمیک موقعی که همه باید دوریشون رو از هم رعایت کنن. مدرسه ها آمادگی سرویس مشاوره دارن برای شاگردان و چگونه شاگردان و پدر مادرها به این سرویس دسترسی دارن.
So the province has committed itself both in education and really in every ministry a focus on mental health. This is a priority for Logan, for Michael, for myself. All of us are committed to this and have been for many years, particularly for our youth. We appreciate that the pandemic has been very disruptive to their lives. It's created a lot of anxiety for these kids, and we're very concerned about it, which is why the province has invested $43 million in new funding during the pandemic. Just to put that into context, when Premier Kathleen Wynne, in the final year of government, when she went on a spending spree, at the peak of spending, they invested $18 million in mental health. Just during the pandemic, we've more than doubled the amount they spent at the peak of spending in the Liberals when it came to mental health. Just what my point is, we are spending 3 times the rate because we get how important mental health is before the pandemic and especially now. We're seeing well over 111 new mental health workers, over 200 psychologists and psychotherapists being hired through our investments over the past year. And I think it's making a big difference. We're working with School Mental Health Ontario, with Kids Help Phone, my colleague, Minister Tobolo, in mental health and addictions, Minister Elliott at the Ministry of Health. We have invested a variety of new funding within the community as well to support young people to get access out of schools. So meaning we're providing supports in school, in the community, in hospitals, and that's going to be, it's a game changer. And again, we're the only province, certainly as of last month, to have invested in mental health early because we recognize the signs and we want to help these kids along the way.
Thank you very much. I'll just be translating that quickly to Farsi as well. Mental health برای آنتریو یکی از پرایورتیاش بوده حتی قبل پندمیک به خاطر اینکه میدونن جوونا زیر چه فشارهایی هستن و حدود 200 سایکولوژیست جدید آوردن توی سکول بوردا که بتونن استودنت ها رو کمک کنن با مشکلاتی که ممکنه داشته باشن و یه کاری که کردن 43 میلیون دلار فاندینگ درست کردن برای این کار فقط توی این تایم پندمیک whereas گاورمنت قبلی 18 میلیون دلار خرج کرده بودن توی هایت خرجشون. سو این گاورمنت ما الان توی پندمیک 3 برابر هزینه بیشتری کرده که فوکس کنه روی استودنت ها و منتال هلتشون، اسپشیلی موقعی که خیلی آدمای جوان دسترسی به همدیگه ندارن و زندگیشون کامپلیت الان زیر رو شده. Thank you so much, Minister Lecce, for joining us today. We appreciate you answering the questions, and thank you again for joining us today. Now, Mr. Tabrizi will join us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, thank you very much really for great information you provided to our community. I think this type of the informative session would be very helpful to the community. And I am a person who has been more than 30 some years very involved in the services of the community, and I really appreciate what your government has done during this difficult time, because neither for you nor for the federal government has been a very normal situation. And I'm just chasing the other countries in the world. And this is what last week I confessed to Mary, our MP of our riding, that what I can see the Canadian government and Ontario government has been done during this difficult time of COVID time. It has been really amazing when you compare it, I'm sure not only comparing for our neighbor, which is a disaster, but even many advanced countries in the European countries, they have not been so successful in all different aspects of what the federal and province has been done. Thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate on behalf of our community. It was very helpful to let us know really what government is doing, and hopefully that we as a member of community will help you to be successful during difficult time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I appreciate it all. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to meet you virtually. And I just want to build on the point, just the sense of gratitude, pride I have as a Canadian, as someone who's a son of immigrants. You know, we really, I think, need to take a moment to reflect on the fact that we live in a country where we've come together during a crisis. And as was noted in the US and other parts of the world, it's not the case. Perfection is not of this world, but I'm proud that our governments are working together, that we're all working with one mission, which is to reduce the risk and get our province back on track, help us recover from the worst of this pandemic. And I know we will. So thank you to the Persian community, to the Persian Canadian community for being so generous, for your donations, for your food bank contributions, for your volunteer hours, for the women and men who serve in the front lines in our hospitals and long-term care centers and in our police. I mean, right across public servants, they're making a difference. So thank you on behalf of the government. It's a great honor to be here with both Logan and Michael, and I look forward to coming back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
خیلی ممنون از همه که امروز جوینمون کردن. مرسی از شما و امید داریم که این جوابهایی که منیستر لچه امروز جواب دادن برامون یه کمکی برای هممون باشه و چیزها رو کلیریفای کنه برامون.
Eric, just 1 second. What time is it?